Hey, what's happening, guys? Dan Dario here with another Options and Play video update. We are heading into a busy week of earnings. Now, things across the market are acting very sloppy. There's a lot of really weak action, and that definitely could impact the quality of movement around earnings this coming week. So, I mean, like, this is going to be something we have to monitor as we get into the week. However, that doesn't diminish from the fact that it's a very busy expected week of news flow. Really, one of like the probably like the top three busiest weeks of this quarter, and a lot of big names. So. We'll keep an eye on what the overall market's doing, but definitely looking forward to some hopefully some nice trading. All right. Before the open on Monday, nothing of interest. After the close on Monday, IBM about 625 is what they're expecting. Um, the complexion of this kind of changed after the unexpected news that the former Red Hat CEO was leaving. So I'm not sure that earnings are going to be as big of a catalyst, but it has been a pretty consistent mover in the past. And I mean, if it does follow the trend of what it's averaged the last few quarters, the option pricing seems kind of low to that. So something to keep an eye on. Also, Steel Dynamics, so about 6 points is what's priced in, but those are monthly options. This is the first steel name, and it's going to be a really busy week for the steel stocks. Could set the tone before a bunch of other reports on Thursday. That's when like the next round of them are. This stock isn't one I trade very often. What's interesting too is that X U.S. Steel doesn't report next week. It could be a nice sympathy play because I mean, pretty busy week of steel, like metal miner reports coming up for the open on Tuesday, Halliburton. So this is the first of the big oil field service names. All three report next week: Halliburton, Baker Hughes, and Schlumberger in that order. Halliburton's pricing at about $1.15. So this is going to have the element of surprise, whereas the next two a little bit less so. I mean, usually the first of the sector has a little bit higher volatility. I guess my opinion overall on energy though is that I really don't know what to make of most of them. It's kind of similar to the banks. I mean, action has just been so mixed. But maybe what I'll do is use Halliburton as a guide to see whether some of these stocks have really kind of fallen far enough where there might be like oversold bounces. But um, I'm kind of on the fence with it. After the close on Tuesday, Netflix. So now we get into tech. 34 points, about what they're looking for here. Definitely one of the biggest names of the week. Last quarter was disappointing. Stock got hit, and it's come all the way back to close that gap, and just now, recently, just retreated. It has closed red 5 out of the last 6 quarters, but people might be more interested in that gaming headline just announced this week. I feel like pricing, it seems kind of light to me. It's moved 45 and 92 the last 2 quarters. They're pricing in 34 this time around, right? So it seems option pricing seems to be expected to move under what it's moved the last 2 quarters. So it might be a decent volatility strategy candidate. Although I guess I might lean slightly more to the bear side, just considering like how last quarter looked number wise, subscriber wise, and also its recent history of weaker reactions to earnings. Chipotle priced in about 70 points. I mean, you can see, you probably know what I'm going to say after the run it's had, but it has not been a consistent earnings mover for a while, and it consistently prices in big moves. Not to mention the stock has had a huge run since the beginning of June, so it just seems like a really bad setup. Um, Plus, I'm like just more cautious on it. So, everybody's talking about splits all the time. I feel like if there was ever a stock that needed a split, this would be it because the volume and the liquidity is just totally dried up on this thing. So, not the easiest one to trade. And after the run it's had, I'm pretty sure I won't be trading it. ISRG about 41 to 42 points. You could probably guess my thinking on this one too. It's had a huge run. It did have a good quarter back in April, but I mean, just a month of straight gains going into this quarter. It just makes it seem like a really tough setup. I suppose if the numbers are good and the stock doesn't do a whole lot and it keeps up here in this trend, maybe you can look for something after. But I mean, in terms of an earnings trade, I don't think I can do anything with that one. Wednesday before the open, ASML, so big semi report. About 28 points is what's expected. It's a big semi-equipment name, and it's near its high. The numbers have been pretty solid the last couple quarters. It doesn't tend to move as much, and option pricing seems kind of high considering its recent movement around earnings. LAM, LRCX, AMAT, AMAT, those are pretty closely correlated, and they can move with ASML. So I might be looking at sympathy plays on those. J&J, big healthcare name, about 4 points is what they're looking for. Um, I guess it just seems like there's more interesting setups. I mean, it is a big healthcare name. I feel like I haven't seen big enough moves around earnings lately to really like justify taking the risk. I will say though, if it does get above like 171, 172, it could trigger a little bit of a breakout. So maybe I'll just watch for like a quick setup after earnings if it gets up there. STX, so about 575 is what they're pricing in. It was a more volatile semi over the last few months, so some of that may carry into this quarter, especially after like this like quieter stretch it's had, where it was like more of like consolidation the last couple weeks. Pricing is definitely elevated though, but on the other hand, I mean, it does seem like a pattern where it should move. So I might look at a volatility strategy on it if I can get risk down enough where it makes sense. After the close on Wednesday, CSX, it's pricing in $1.15. I mean, I haven't traded the rails much. This is the first major rail report outside of KSU. Um, it's not really been a focus for me, but UMP reports later in the week, so maybe you could look at like a NSC as like a possible like sympathy play. LVS, about 265 is what's priced in on this. Casinos have been really out of favor. I mean, this has just been in a steady downtrend. I mean, it's basically the complete opposite of what Chipotle did, right? I mean, Chipotle was straight up for a month, and this has been straight down. Um, I mean, it seems like a real tough technical setup, so I might just wait and see what they say before doing anything because, I mean, the stock has really struggled to find any buyers. Texas Instruments, about 7.5, another big semi report. Stock has been in a pretty nice consolidation slash range up here. Seems ready for a move. Um, it has responded negatively to the last couple earnings in a row, though. So, I feel like you need to kind of factor that in with any strategy on this. And I guess also what might play into TXN is how the sector responds, maybe Monday, Tuesday, and early Wednesday, because probably going to need the overall sector to firm up for this name to work because it doesn't really tend to like materially outperform what the overall semi sector is doing. Whirlpool, about 12.5 is what's priced in here. Uh, it's funny, like the last 2 quarters, stock was up big after hours and then it gave it all back by the time the market opened or during the day. So I'm not sure if that's going to play out necessarily again, but I have that in the back of my mind that I saw that happen and like option prices, get whacked. So I might stay away from options on this. All right, Thursday before the open, Abbott. So about 3.5 points is what they're looking for on this. This got smoked back at the beginning of June when they warned, and that was due to the slowdown in COVID testing. Now, stock has recovered, and I think maybe some of that is because of the uptick in Delta cases. So it's not much of an earnings mover typically, but the stock has been volatile over the past month, and maybe this time around sees a little bit larger of a swing. But at 3.5 points, may not be too much above that. Biogen, this could be interesting. 19 to 20 points is what's priced in. There's just been so much drama on this after the FDA approval. It's really hard to keep up with the daily headlines. At the end of the day, and I mean this is what I've been saying now for a couple weeks. At the end of the day, if the Alzheimer's drug launch goes well, then the stock probably does really really well too. Um, Down here, I mean, to me, it seems like the risk reward is more skewed to the upside. But this earnings is only going to have like a small window because the drug was only just approved in June, and then the delay in the launch. So there's not going to be a lot to really look at. But I mean, if the drug launch goes well, then I think the stock does well too. But it's really going to revolve around the Alzheimer's drug launch now. So, and that's the main catalyst on it. Cliffs. All right, so this is when we get like a bunch of like steel and mining names. So they're priced in about 215. Cliffs, I feel like acts the best of the bunch, and they already raised guidance in June. So I mean, to me, it would be more of like a swing trade idea. As long as it stays in this trend, I mean, I feel like there's been a lot of opportunity to like to look at like swing trades for like a couple weeks or like a month even. So like that's really what my focus is going to be is just whether or not you can stay in trend post earnings. FCX priced in about 2 points. This is definitely weaker at the moment. So I mean, this is probably going to need a strong print to help stabilize it because it does look a little susceptible right now. And then also NUE, another one, about 4 points is what they're looking for. This one's maybe more of a wild card because it's moved around a lot lately. But earnings wise, it's been a little bit more mixed. I think if I play one on Thursday, it might be NUE. But also, X could be a decent sympathy play because I mean it's one of the ones that doesn't report next week, where a lot of its peers do. Crocs. So about 15 points. Those are monthly options. Leading apparel, footwear stock, right? Just up right off its all-time high. They absolutely crushed it last quarter. Stock was up a lot from there, and I mean it's had plenty of momentum since. I mean, I do feel like there's probably some follow through after that quarter, but I mean, expectations also seem high. So it might be kind of tough to lay out the money on it with option pricing pretty high too. Domino's, I mean, 24 points is what's expected. I mean, look at the run. I feel like you guys know the story before I even say it. I mean, you look at the chart. Um, Big run into earnings just doesn't seem like a great recipe for an earnings trade. Plus, they had a mixed quarterback in April. Um, so I guess I'd actually be a little bit more cautious on Domino's. After the close on Thursday, Sam Adams, so about 110 points is what's priced in, but those are monthly options. It's had some giant moves on earnings over the last 3 quarters. Now the stock is well off its 2021 high. I think the thing that is the biggest issue for me is just that the monthly options are the only ones available, and I mean you got to lay out a lot of money for the contracts, and at 110 points, I mean it's pretty steep. So I mean like that might remove the potential for earnings for me. I do think though it's one if you have conviction and direction. I mean it's demonstrated that it can move, so it just really comes down to whether or not you have like a clear direction in mind. Intel, big tech name, 325 is what's priced in here. There's a headline today that they're looking at Global Foundries deal, so we'll see what materializes with that. But um, I mean, if you look at this strictly as like an earnings play, I mean, it seems like it's set up for movement after almost like a nice like pennant is formed here. Also, Intel's been hit very very hard 4 quarters in a row, so I feel like you have to take that into consideration with any strategy on Intel. There's room underneath, there's room above, and it's gotten rocked 4 quarters in a row on earnings, so it seems like a setup where it should move. Snap. About 7 points is what's priced in. It was leading for a while, but I mean, it really turned lower fast. It hasn't had the same interest as other top tech names. Its report was better than Pins and Twitter last quarter, but and the stock wasn't rewarded. So I know that pricing on the options isn't cheap, but it also seems like it could be a mover too. Even like more than what like the 7+ points is pricing in. So I might be looking at a volatility strategy on this if I can get risk down a bit. And then lastly on Thursday, Twitter pricing about 7 points as well. This was crushed last quarter, and it's come all the way back and then some. I'm more cautious on it, but Twitter is one where it can be unpredictable around earnings. Definitely a wild card setup. Um, I mean, I have last quarter's movement in the back of my mind. I mean, and considering how big of a move it's had off that low, I mean, I do feel like the downside might be greater than the upside, but it has occasionally had some really big moves, and at 7 points, I mean, if it does move anywhere near what it did last quarter, I mean, it definitely leaves some money um, available on the option pricing. So um, this might be a game time decision for me later in the week. Friday before the open, AXP about 6 points is what's priced in. It's been a very steady uptrend for months. That's trending trade, right? I mean, when you have a trending trade, it's usually a recipe for lower volatility. These types of patterns, calendar spreads, longer dated options, I mean, that's how you smooth out the implied premiums, the higher near-term implied premiums, sorry. Honeywell, about 6.5 points of what's expected. Just jumped on the NASDAQ conclusion this week, and it's now back near its 52-week highs. Stocks that have had big runs in earnings have not been the best setup so far, so I'm likely going to leave this one alone, unless it either pulls back or pauses ahead of time. And then lastly, Schlumberger, $1.50 is what's priced in, and Halliburton, Baker Hughes, GE both report earlier in the week, so I'm not sure there's going to be much surprise left here. But at that point, we're probably going to have a pretty good idea of what the energy numbers are, so we'll see how Friday goes. All right? So a lot of big names, a lot of big expected movement, and let's hope get some good trading, all right? So if you like this video and you're looking for more information about swing trading with options or trading earnings with options, please follow up with the link in the description of the video for more information on options to play. Have a wonderful weekend, stay well, and I will talk to you on Monday.